Thank you for staying tuned. Let's turn to our main focus, the upcoming Rivers local government elections. Well, a lot of people believe that this isn't just about electing council chairmen and councillors. They say it's about who truly controls the grassroots polls of Rivers politics. With Governor Siminalayi Fubara still battling the issue of suspension, his rivals not backing down, and voters caught in between. These polls are already being seen as a mini referendum on leadership and, let's say, loyalty in the state. So, what should we really expect when Rivers voters head to the polls come August 30? We'll be getting into it as we have joining us Director Center for Human Rights and Accountability Network, Otwekong Franklyn Isong joins us live on the program. Thank you for joining us, Otwekong.
Yeah, good afternoon. Terrific Monday and terrific. I keep telling you because this has been your slogan on this show. Good to be here with you, Jennifer. And,
welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, sir.
My pleasure.
We're looking at Rivers State and the upcoming local government elections. Although a number of civil society organizations have called it illegal or termed it illegal, but then it is also necessary that the people would have some form of representation at the grassroots, which is the local government, and which the election will be held on Saturday. But let's get to understanding from the annulment in the last election, which brought about some 23 local government chairmen from the APP, and then just one ceded to a different party. And now we're looking at under an emergency rule. You think Rivers State is really ready for this election?
Well, I like the word you used. You use your words carefully. One local government ceded to the opposition party in the election that was annulled by the Supreme Court last year. But the question I would have loved to ask would have been, what led to the annulment? Why was it annulled by the Supreme Court? The Rivers State has been in the news for so many controversial reasons, one of which is the declaration of emergency rule by the president using Section 305 of our Constitution, which we have faulted because there is nowhere in the provisions of the law that says elected governor and elected House members will be removed by the president. That matter is still subject to the court, interpretation and pronouncement. The president had constituted or appointed Ibo Etieba as the man to run the state. We would have thought that an appointee of that nature that is, being immersed in a lot of controversies, both legal issues and public and social critique, will not, involve in what will raise more issues. One of the issues that that Ibo Etieba has done that we considered an affront to the Constitution and to the law of the land is to dissolve all statutory boards in Rivers State. That includes the CX. The CX is an establishment of the Constitution. Section 197, sub 1B of our Constitution established the CX among the state bodies. And Section 197, sub 2 states that the function of CX will be as prescribed by the House of Assembly. And therefore, the members of the CX will now be appointed, the chairman and members will be appointed by the governor and then sent to the House of Assembly for confirmation. That is what the Constitution says. It stipulates these provisions. It did not say that somebody who is appointed can, dissolve the CX and appoint someone to become the SEC chairman and members. Now, this has happened in Rivers State. What led to it and the annulment of the past election that was held last year was because the Supreme Court held that the INEC, the SEC, did not comply, non-compliance with the Electoral Act provisions, including the non-usage of voter register. That INEC did not release the voter register to the SEC. Point one. Point two, that the 90 days notice that ought to have been saved to political parties wasn't complied to. And then the Supreme Court now nullified the outcome. Because election is a process. you must follow the process before you now get to the final outcome. And therefore, the Supreme Court held that the outcome of that election was null and void, and it was nullified. Now, one would have thought that having, been appointed as the person to run River State and the governor has been removed and the matter is in contention, that you would not involve in things that would bring up more legal issues. Ibon Itibas dissolved the statutory boards, including the CX, and appointed even someone from Cross River State.
But you understand.
I'm coming. Michael Ode to be the chairman of the CX, which became another subject of controversies, even though it was clear by the Senate, which is what you want to raise. Senate, cleared them. Now, you can now see a scenario where you have the president of Nigeria, when his appointees are screened and cleared by the Senate. The governor of a state, appointees from the governors are screened and cleared by the House of Assembly. Now, what you have now, you have a situation where the president appointee, a federal appointee now in River State, appoints someone and send the names to Senate. And Senate now screened and cleared. Now, some of the persons who are appointed are not the indigenes, because you must note that SIEC is supposed to be a local content body that has to do with local content, not more of an indigenous, state body. But you appointed someone from another state to be the chairman, which is still in litigation, which is still in court, and instead of you to allow for the court to determine, and the body now came up to issue timetable for election to be held on Saturday, which is dated of August. Have you been able to comply with 90 days notice? That's question number one. Question number two, have you conformed with what the laws expect you to do? And you forget that by the 17th of next month, September 17th, your tenure would have elapsed. You were appointed on 18th of March for 6 months tenure. And by 17th of September, you would have been off the office. Why the haste? By 30th of August, you plan to have election. And after 2 weeks after, you will leave office and go. After you have created more legal issues for the state. So we in the CSOs would have thought that the best thing for River State would have been for Ibon Itibas to allow these elections to be put on hold, whilst his tenure elapsed September 17th. When he leaves office, when the governor of the state returns, he will now, conduct election in line with the Electoral Act and with the constitution of the country. Because the way it is going, you will resort to what led to the other one being nullified. It's also been what are the grounds that are already in court. Meanwhile, a party has gone to court. African Democratic Party is already in court, asking that the grounds for elections are flawed, and so it should be nullified. So what we are saying is that let elections that will be held on Saturday be put on hold.
Well, I don't know how feasible that call is, but then I'd like you to speak to how much of this affects the democratic process that we're preaching in the country. Do you think that this is that far-reaching? Or you made mention of them electing people or bringing people that are not indigents of River State. Don't you think that this is another way of ensuring that there is a level playing field and there are no interference in the elections, so to say?
The Constitution is very clear. We are operating a federation where you have 3-tier system of administration of government: the federal government, the state, and the local government. And the state operates autonomous of the federal government. The only thing that links the states with the federal government is joint account, where the FAC will, where all the revenue from the state are deposited in one account, and at the end of the month, it is now being shared based on, stipulated percentage from RANFAC. Now, that is not enough for the president to authorize to remove a governor who was elected. even the Supreme Court position when the issue of local government was before the Supreme Court to determine if the state governors can actually appoint people to man local government councils. The Supreme Court made it very clear that they cannot even sack elected chairmen of councils. Now, if the governor cannot sack chairmen who are elected, how much more a president coming to sack a governor that was also elected? Same day that election is held for governor, same day it is held for the president. So these are two different issues. So the state bodies have different functions, and so it is wrong for someone who is not from the state to be appointed to become the S-man as the chairman of such an indigenous bodies like the SIEC. It's not done anywhere. This is the first time we are seeing that, and we would have thought that the function of the led temporary government would have just been to stabilize the crisis, to meet with warring functions, to mediate and resolve issues. But from what we are seeing, more issues are being created. You have several issues in court already because of this issue of appointment, of elections, of who does what, and this is not what was envisaged.
So you think Ibas is working unilaterally? You think he doesn't have? He's not backed by some authorization.
Who in the state is he working? Which arm of government in the state is he working with? By right, he is supposed to be sending his nominees to the House of Assembly. The Assembly is another arm of the state, but because of the emergency rule, the state assembly is removed, the governor is removed, so he is now answerable to the federal structure. So invariably, the orders he gets is from the federal, and he is doing things that is affecting people of the state. So that is why we are saying that the actions of Ibas is not in line with the law. Even though he was appointed ultra virus the law, he shouldn't also continue to do things that is further infringing and becoming an affront to the law.
But we know already that he was brought in to bring about some form of stability in Rivers State, and we've seen that to some level, the suspended Rivers State Governor Siminalayi Fubara and the House members have all had some level of cordiality played out, and even with its predecessor, the FCT minister, they have shown in some level that there's some level of cordiality. And within that period, one of the bone of contention was who is in charge of the grassroots development, which is the local government chairman. Questions had arisen in that regard. And so with the mention of the local government election, this was meant to fix up those loopholes and ensure that the local government chairman stepped up to the ground, like you had mentioned earlier, that the 90 days gap, which led to the extension of the local government election to 30th August 2025. But the question also comes into, from this angle, the power play. We understand from the first annulment of the local government election, there was so much of power play, and the president doesn't, in his words, doesn't want to see all the power play. But then, with this election, do you think that all of the issues on power play, who is in charge of Rivers State political states, the political stage, who is in charge or who will be in charge, all of that will be answered with the local government election?
I just think the haste to conduct the election on the 30th, I call it haste, on the 30th of August, is unnecessary. What will Ibas loses if he doesn't hold the elections? Nothing. Nothing, practically nothing. Because on the 2 weeks after the election is done, his tenure is over. So what will he lose? Nothing. But he can gain more not holding the elections and being a statesman and allow and listening to all issues and postpone it, knowing that when you do election on the 30th and go, the 2 weeks after your tenure is over and you are gone, and you have already kept a tumor that will continue to cause more disagreement in the state. And part of his mandate did not include to go and do election for local government, mind you.
What if his scope was
It didn't
reviewed?
include.
What if it was reviewed while he was
When the president made the proclamation and gazetted it with functions, his duty was to go and make peace, restore law and order. And to make law and order also means to go and begin to do things that are unconstitutional and unlawful.
How about if that was what?
So why we call it unlawful? The question is why we call it unlawful is that he is an appointee. The board that he has constituted is also appointed by him, an appointee. Does he have the power based on the law? I have just told you that the constitution is very clear that establish the procedure. So even if there is need to have people to man the local government elections, it should not be done by him, because the same reason that the Supreme Court used in October 5th, 2024 to nullify the other pool that was done by Sim Fubara, citing gross violation of the Electoral Act, particularly Section 150 of the Act, will also be used. And taxpayers' funds are being wasted. You have a repeat cycle. So I don't know who are his advisors, but I think that the best thing for him to do now, under this condition, is to suspend the pool. Like I have said, he has nothing to lose whatsoever.
Well, wouldn't this be too late?
Why? 24 hours to you can postpone it. You are seeing build up of crisis. If you go to the university, that you see that it's a build up because some parties are threatening to boycott. Some are already in the court.
You think at this point it is the decision of the administrator to make as regards whether the election should go on or not?
So far, he's the only one that is now ruling the state, howbeit it illegal, but he's the one ruling the state. He only give account to the National Assemblies.
You don't think he has powers backing him?
The powers he has are not backed up by law. That is what that one is still in contention in the court. That you cannot use any emergency rule to remove elected governor and elected assembly. It's already in contention in court.
Well,
while that one is still in contention, you are doing things that are also more controversial.
Well, a court had ruled that the local government polls should actually go on, considering the sensitivity of the local government when we talk about grassroots representation, and a lot of judicial back and forth here and there regarding this particular issue. Do you think that in the midst of all this, we're going to be left with more drama in Rivers State than solutions if this election
that is what
I'm
saying. That is what I'm saying. You are seeing build up to crisis. You are seeing a potential danger that is being built up. There is need for the governor and his team, for Ibo Itibas to return back to the drawing board and his team and look at it and said, no, let us ease the tension in the state by not going ahead. Because not going ahead will mean ease dousing tension. Currently, there are tension being built. The first one that was held, that was annulled. The same thing that we said, I was here to say it. I said, the governor has no right to go ahead, whereas you have no voters register from INEC. INEC refused to release the voters register to the governor last year, and as a group went to court, asked that the police should not provide services, should not provide security to back up the polls. And despite this, the governor went ahead in violation of the law to do the election that the court later upturned. So if you now have an election that is order, the same picture is being painted, the same scenario is being created, and you go ahead to do it, you also see where the Supreme Court will say, this is what we said when the issue came up, that you have to abide by the law. So now at that point, Ibas would have gone, but taxpayers' money would have been wasted, and the court would have come to nullify it, and the whole money is wasted.
Does this have some?
And in the course of these elections, crisis will erupt, possibly, and maybe life would have been gone. Well, because there are build up of crisis already we are seeing.
this crisis you envisage, there are security agencies to ensure that elections go safe and the people have some level of confidence to go out to vote.
I don't have any issue with security agencies. Elections have been held where the federal government will mobilize security agencies to the state, and even at that you still have violence. How do you do election without violence? Check the history of Nigerian elections. You always see violence. How much more the one that is in a strong is being contended, and like the issue that led to the crisis between the former governor Isong and the governor Steve Obara is the issue of the control of local government structure. That's the point. And now we want to now have election to put up structure for local government. Who are the chairmen that will be elected going to be loyal to?
But don't you think this would be the best time, considering the fact that one of the parties who has interest in this, which is Siminalayi Fubara, and the House members who are allegedly loyal to the FCT minister are not playing at this point? Don't you think a neutral body like the sole administrator is capable of conducting this election to put an end to that?
I don't think so. I think that the person you call the person who has interest, the governor of the state, the law doesn't see him as one who has interest. The law sees him as the governor of the state, and the powers to do election falls under his purview. He is the one to appoint the CIEC, send the names to the assembly, and the assembly will now screen, confirm, and then the body will issue timetable. Election will now be held under his own supervision. That's what the law says.
Well, Twicom, let's talk about how this affects the voters themselves. You know that recently...
First thing you will see will be voter party.
Well, I was coming to that. The INEC has already commenced its CVR, and a lot of questions regarding how would this election be effective if the very head of the helm of affairs that was democratically elected in Rivers State is still sidelined. Do you think that this is going to be very far-reaching when we talk about participation of voters? Would there even be an effective turnout on the day of the election?
The one that was held that the security agencies boycotted and INEC did not release voters' material to the CIEC to conduct the election under Steve Obara was also boycotted by voters because of the imminent fear and threat to danger. How much more this one that is eminently, you see the posture of imminent danger and crisis. So you will simply see voter apathy. The voters will not have, the confidence is not going to be there. First, the process is in doubt, that the man who is going to do it is not the person whom they voted into office. Second, that he lacks the powers to do it. Third, that the man who is the INEC, the REG chairman, is not from their state. There's already that doubt over the neutrality of the CIEC by the indigenes, by the people of the state, and even the CSOs. So we are not even going to go there to monitor, because going to monitor simply means to give credibility to what is not, in line with the law. And so you will now see elections where it will be held in the midst of, without monitors, independent monitors from the CSOs, without the voters going out, maybe possibly to go and vote. Then you will only have security agencies being at the polling unit, and finally they will come out and say, these people won, this one won, this one won, and more parties have even boycotted. And the elections would be done. There are stakeholders to an election. One is the voter, two is security agencies, the third is the INEC, is the CIEC, then the fourth are the parties. Now, the parties are already protesting, they are in court. The voters here are also clamoring that the persons who are going to do it are not from their state, and that the process is clouded, is being clouded in doubt. So out of these stakeholders, already three, even the CSOs who ought to monitor, we are having doubt.
All right.
So you now have only one or two out of these stakeholders, and then how do you now confer some level of authority and legality to the process and to the outcome? So we can even predict the outcome from now.
But are there broader implications of this? Now, understanding that emergency rules constitutional. And does this have some broader implications on how emergency rules can be adjusted in the country and how the people can relate more in situations like this?
The first implication is that democracy is under threat in River State and in Nigeria. The emergency rule under Section 305 did not say the governor will be removed and the House members. Democracy is, is a system of government that is governed by rules, laws of the land, which is the constitution, that is the supreme law. And if the law says this is how things should be done, you must follow through that process. Otherwise, you will be doing it that is undemocratic. Have we had similar rules before in this country? The answer is yes. We've had it in Borno and Gombe under the past president. Were the governors of those states removed? The answer is no. They were still there working with the emergency structure of the federal government to restore law and order. So when you come and remove elected institutions, you remove them. You are simply bringing in fiat that has, you put aside that constitution. So invariably, what we are saying is that in River State, the law of River State is a military decree. It's no longer a constitution. So out of the state, once it is now singled out to be applying a different order, which is not in line with our constitution.
Oh, Choikong, let's talk about something really sensitive. Some observers have been of the opinion that this election that is upcoming in River State is less of about bringing in chairmen and councillors, but more about people who are interested in controlling the political structure in River State come 2027. How much of this analysis would you say is accurate? And when we talk about these elections, let's say it holds, who do you think are the most persons to benefit from this election if it were to go ahead?
The power that be, the Igbo Itibas led government already knows those that will win. I can say this for sure because when you sideline the major stakeholders, it's assumed that you have a predetermined outcome. Because when you see protest from major stakeholders saying this election has, the process is not right, the laws have been infringed, follow through the due process, and you still go ahead, then it means you are working towards a predetermined outcome. And so those that will win are those of the federal might. Let me not name them, but they are the federal might. Because now you can now see a federal might in a state under a state order. So you don't have a civil rule in River State. What you have is completely military rule. That's the clarity you have in River State. And whatever happens there is using military, dictatorship.
Okay, let's flip it around now. If, let's say, these elections were to be halted as you have recommended, what do you think it is going to do to the democracy we run in Nigeria, especially considering that there are other states that are really looking at River State and taking notes as regards what is happening there and hoping to replicate same in other states of the Federation, let's say Rivers were to succeed in this?
That is why we are opposing it. We are saying what we are saying, because if this is allowed to stay, it then means that the president will just one day wake up and look at one state and say, that state, the government is not in my party, you are out because of a big emergency rule, and remove the house members and then put those who are loyal to me. That's the first thing that we are trying to fight against. Second thing will be that you have people who are going to be elected as council chairmen, supposedly, that will be having litigations. The 23 council chairmen will be having cases in court. First, they will lack the credibility that the indigenes would have given to them if the election were to be held under a civil government, a civil rule government. But now you have issue where at the end of the day, after maybe some months into office, they will now be removed by the court. So you can now have a repeat cycle, and public funds would have been wasted. So what we are trying to do, like you are saying, yes, other states are watching to see if this flies, and it becomes the norm. That you can one day, a governor can be removed and then somebody else will be appointed. It may not even be President Bola Tinubu. Another president can come on board that will just come and be doing it the way he wants, and he will say, okay, in civil state, I don't want it. Yes, I don't want it.
Serves as reference from years now.
That becomes a precedent. that in Rivers State it happened, and he appointed someone who went there and then took over the control of local government areas and give it to somebody that they want, and that will be anti-democratic, anti-democracy. That is why we are saying that the election should be postponed. Let us get it right. The more Ibas-led military government will not have anything to lose if the elections to be postponed.
But is there even a possibility of a drama-free Rivers State? Now, from when the governor was still unsuspended and the House members were all working, it was still there was so much of drama. And then we brought in the Ibas-led administration, and we're still talking about drama. And so is there a possibility of having a drama-free Rivers State?
The only possibility that I can, profile here will be that we return back to democratic institutions where you have the governor. Return back to where we were before they were removed. And don't forget that the governor was elected to serve for 4 years. So also we are the lawmakers. Now you have removed 6 months from his tenure. The oath of office he took from the constitution says 4 years. And you have shortened 6 years, 6 months out of the 4 years. That is injustice that has to be addressed. Now that is aside. The only way out now is let the democratic order be returned, where you have the governor, similarly, returned, the House members, the speakership under Martin Amehule, then businesses continue. If they have disagreement, the constitution also provides the way to address it. That is what the president was trying to tell us as the excuse that he had to bring in to remove them. I heard the Federal Attorney General, my friend, Lieutenant Chief Franklyn, saying that the reason why they removed the governor and the other was that there was an impeachment that was hanging on the governor's neck. That the governor would have been impeached. Why didn't you allow the law to take its course? Let the law be followed.
Well,
let the governor be impeached if that is what the law says.
Some of your civil society voices, like the Center for Democracy and Development, keep saying that local government elections in Nigeria tend to be just mere coronations. Do you corroborate this stance, especially when we're talking currently about conversations around how to strengthen the local government? We talk about the autonomy. To what extent do you think that the issue of getting the local government to work effectively has been accomplished in the country with all the realities we see currently?
I make bold to say that what we have is 774 poverty centers in Nigeria. That is what I can say. That the state governors, which the Supreme Court even have to affirm, had used Section 162, Sub 5 of our Constitution, created joint account, to twist the local government system. That Section 7 of our Constitution has also been violated by the governors. That you have a chairman being appointed instead of elected. And that is that the chairman can be removed from office arbitrarily by the governor. So that now gives you the semblance of the picture that we are having, where a loyalist of a governor can be made a chairman. He sleeps one day as a PA and wakes up as the chairman of the council. This is what even played out even in Rivers State when you had the election that was nullified last year. You have people who were just appointed to become chairman and then they were elected and then they were put there. They were the cap of elected members, violating the laws of the land. So the only way this can be addressed is the full-fledged local government autonomy, which the Supreme Court has ruled. But as we picked up to today, the local government chairmen are still being tied to the airport strings of state governors. Their funds are still being held by the state, not released to the state. That's why you cannot see a council chairman, building infrastructure in the local government level across the country. Only few, like Lagos State, that you can see them doing more, but the state, some states are lacking behind. So the local government completely is an aberration of democracy until we begin to have a body which we have proposed to be an independent body to do election for the local government system. So the CX should be scrapped. If the CX is scrapped, then you now replace the CX with a body at the federal level that oversees elections at the local government level. So you can now see that the government will not have full control of it. And that is why you have that argument for and against state police, because the same idea of governors having control of using the state CX to run the local government elections may likely happen with our state police. That is the fear that people have in mind.
But Otuekong, you just mentioned that the local government election in Rivers State, which some non-indigents are managing, and of course it's under the control of the federal government, which gives instruction to Iboite Ibas. And here you are, still contradicting that and talking about scrapping of the CX to bring a federal government body to manage the affairs.
You didn't get my point. He was asking me, how do I see the local government system now, not River State in particular. We're looking at in the country. That's why I said that we have 774 local government poverty centers. If they were to be autonomous, independent of themselves, the funds of local government given to them, and things are done rightly, I mean across the country, not only in River State now, that things would have gone better. So my position about River State is a particular issue, a peculiar matter. River State issue is a peculiar case. But he was asking me generally about local government system. And I was telling you that local government system has collapsed. And that's why the Supreme Court made a pronouncement that local government should be given autonomy. That section 162 sub 5 of our constitution is what is given the local government into the arms of the state government. And that has been the witchcraft that has bewitched the local government system in Nigeria. Well, so my stand about the River State issues remains intact.
We're going to dock with the people, the persons that this affects the most, which is of course the River State people, and how they are caught up in all of this, what roles they have to play towards ensuring that they speak to the powers that be and demand accountability for what happens in their state. Do you think they have done enough when it comes to getting their voices heard regarding what they want in their state, if the political players are unwilling to do the right thing?
Well, I think that River State has done, the CSOs there have done so much because we are in touch. I go to River State every now and then. We have conferences, seminars, and symposium, and the rest of it, creating awareness. All what I'm saying here, I will say it there, and I've been saying it there in River State. So the civic populace are well enlightened. They are well exposed. In fact, they were the first to resist and oppose the emergency rule. They came out to protest against it, that this is not in line with what they wanted, who they voted for. So they are fully aware. That is why I fear that on the 30th of August, they might likely boycott the poll. And if you don't have voters going to vote to confer legitimacy to those who will emerge as council chairman, then you have issues of authority and legitimacy. So that is why we are saying that the law should be followed. The Constitution of Nigeria should be followed, so that at the end of the day, the outcome would be what everybody will be satisfied with. My final opinion has always remained that the led government will not have anything to lose if the poll is postponed. After all, on the 17th of September, which is next month, the session is finished. Why create legal issues for the government that will come and take over and inherit those crises? That's my point.
Well, thank you very much, Director, Center for Human Rights and Accountability Network, Otuekong Franklyn Isong, for speaking with us. I mean, at the end of the day, it still boils down to the Rivers people and what they want and how they want their state to play out. And we're hoping that the points and suggestions you've raised on the show this afternoon would be put into account, and the powers that be will be able to work accordingly. Thank you for coming on the program.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much, Otuekong, for coming. Thank you.
Well, that's the size of Niger Delta today. Well, thank you for being with us. We'll bring you another fresh edition of the program tomorrow, God willing. My name is Xavier Robert, wishing you a terrific afternoon.
And I am Jennifer Pius. Thanks for being a part of Niger Delta today. Join us again tomorrow. Have a great day.